And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Tom Fernelli. I'm Chip Patterson. Week 1, not 100% in the books. In fact, week 1 still with a lot left to go. Significant action underway. UCLA currently leading LSU as we get set recording at 11:50 p.m. Eastern time. All right, we've got the top 5 matchup in the books, Georgia and Clemson. Georgia 10, Clemson 3, a lot to get to there. We could take this thing all the way back into our significant Thursday and Friday night results, as we've not gotten a chance to recap there. But for you, the wonderful viewers that are tuning in, youtube.com/cover3. Reminder, you can always watch our Monday afternoon shows, our Thursday lock shows, and our Saturday instant reaction shows. You can be tuning in to them at youtube.com/cover3. And if you are a subscriber to the Cover 3 page on YouTube, then guess what? Turn on those notifications. You get notified anytime we go live, so you don't even have to worry about it. So is it now 37-20? Did UCLA just score a touchdown?
Yeah. It's over, and you get the Rose Bowl, boys.
Okay, so let's save until the 6:31 left as I'm looking at my score tracker right now. I don't have any screens because I'm dedicating all my bandwidth to you and delivering that multi-platform excellence. So let's go ahead and start with Clemson and Georgia. It's fresh on my mind. I just did the write-up for CBSSports.com, and I think I want to tackle it first because I think we can get through it probably faster than some of these other results because it feels like we don't have a lot to peel apart. So I want to turn it over to you guys first. In this performance where we saw no offensive touchdowns, but man, such a strong level of play from Jordan Davis, from Devontae Wyatt. You got good outside linebacker play from Anderson and from Nolan Smith. Is this all about Georgia's defense for you? How much of this do you assign to Clemson's offense? And, how do you balance those two things as we look at both these teams moving forward?
I got to say, I liked that game better when it was called Penn State, Wisconsin this morning.
Ooh, do you think that's a theme through the day? Do you think that the defenses being ahead of the offenses is something that we might have seen in week 1, maybe in a way we didn't see in week 1 in the pandemic season?
Possibly. I just think that it was 2 cases of 2 teams with better defensive lines than offensive lines, and you kind of got a messy game to take out of it. But that was really my biggest takeaway from Georgia Clemson tonight, was that neither offensive line. I thought Georgia's offensive line was better than Clemson's offensive line going in, but neither of them exactly covered themselves in glory tonight. And in their defense, like Clemson, that Georgia defensive line was just incredible tonight. That entire front seven, we talked about it this week leading up to it. It's why I took Georgia in the game. Still, I was shocked to see how dominant it was. And I feel like Clemson's defensive line, while not quite at the same level as Georgia's tonight, also played really well. I thought neither JT Daniels or DJ played great, but in their defense, they were under a lot of pressure over the entire night. I also felt like neither team's receivers did a whole lot to get open and give them kind of a release valve for them for most of the night too. So it was, Georgia's obviously going to be happy with the win, but it's not like a kind of win where if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm like, all right, we're ready to go compete with Alabama.
I think both these teams were really missing some important pieces tonight, and it showed, right? And where they were not missing pieces, for the most part, with the exception of Clemson with Tyler Davis, was along the defensive line. Both offensive lines kind of got whipped. I thought when Georgia lost Tate in that first series along the offensive line, that was a pretty big deal because, as you know, if you listen to the Junkyard Dogcast, they've been talking about how they're down offensive linemen. They got a bunch of injuries up front, and then to lose him was a big deal. Tom, I thought the other point you brought up was really good, though. Where is the Hunter Renfrow? Where is the the slot they had last year, right? Who came off the ACL and
Larry
really
Rogers, the guy.
Where's the threat over the middle of the field?
The guy who could get that first down on 3rd and 6 when you really need it.
And
all their receivers look the same.
Yeah, everyone's been trying to make it Braden Galloway. Everyone imagines that Braden Galloway is going to be this magic potion for this offense to be able to open it up. He missed all the time with the PED suspension, and you were just like, okay, well now he's back, and it's never clicked. You look at JC Chalk, you look at all those different tight ends. Bud, we brought it up, man, might have been a month ago, but like Jordan Leggett was a huge part of a Clemson offense back in the day. And whether it's a slot receiver or a tight end, you don't have a middle of the field presence right now. I mean, like how much of that do you take into also the, decisions that DJ Uyunglele is making right now? I mean, do you give him good grades for this game, or are you putting a lot of this also on the personnel and the makeup of the pass catchers?
Just because I've seen it in high school and because I've seen him do it last year, I do give him kind of a pass because I feel like he was just harassed all night. And when he had a little bit of time, he made a couple of pretty good throws, especially the one when they're going in the fourth quarter down the sideline. It was a nice ball he threw. I just think that like Georgia overwhelmed them physically right now. They do have some issues up front, and nobody's getting open for them. On a couple of those wide angle replays that ESPN showed, nobody was open. It wasn't like he was misidentifying guys who weren't open. Like they weren't there.
Yeah, I also think too, like they've got to figure out a way to get more of a run game going with him. Because I mean, especially if you don't have the receivers who are going to get the kind of separation that they clearly weren't. And I don't know, maybe whether you game plan for it or not tonight, maybe the way that Georgia defensive line was playing, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I mean, he technically finished with 14 rushes for negative 22 yards, but he was sacked 7 times. And I think that's something but I just think that's something Clemson might want to consider going forward to kind of maybe take some pressure off of teams being able to just, blitz or do whatever they have to do to take advantage of that offensive line. And then the other side too, like going back to Georgia, like JT Daniels, 22 of 30 for 135 yards. Like, where was the vertical stuff that we were
no, not there. No. Yeah, we had no explosive passes. We had no explosive plays in this game. I mean,
do you remember the questions that we had about these receivers on Georgia once Pickens went down and once the other guy went down? Like, guys, they got issues there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
maybe they'll get some dudes back. We'll see.
Do you think it matters? Because that's like that. When we were discussing the stakes episode, when we said, how much does this game mean? It does feel like I came out with more concern about both Georgia and Clemson.
Yeah.
And yet I spin it forward and I don't see either team losing another game, at least before the conference championship game.
I mean, if Georgia's offense is as impotent as it looked tonight, they could lose to Florida pretty easily. They could lose to Auburn. That was just, I mean, granted, they're not going to be facing many defensive lines like Clemson, but still, like it was just dink and dunk. They weren't taking any shots, and it was just too much like the Georgia team we saw last year, where it's like, sure, maybe their defense is so good that they're going to be able to just keep playing these low-scoring games, but the problem we've talked about for the last few years with this team is when they get up against a team that can score, they can't keep up. So it's like when it comes to Alabama, they can't keep up. Florida can score. Like the Gators looked, I didn't watch that entire game. They looked pretty crappy for most of the game before they finally turned it on against FAU and pulled away. But I still think that's a Florida offense that as the season gets going is going to be able to put points on the board. And my biggest concern after watching Georgia tonight is like, hell yeah, you're 1-0. That's great. But man, you scored 10 points and 7 of them came on defense.
Anything else? We've got a lot to get to. I want to hit Penn State, Wisconsin next. Anything else on Clemson, Georgia that lingers? How about this? All right, so let's say, does everyone here think that Clemson's going to win the rest of its regular season games?
Based on the way the ACC looked at its other games, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the most likely loss?
NC State.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not writing off North Carolina after a tough road game to start the season against Virginia Tech. I'm not writing off Miami after getting blitzed by Alabama because that's just what Alabama does to everybody. But still, I'd go NC State maybe right now because NC State of all those teams, like they're the only one that really, well, not Clemson still, but of the other 3 challengers, NC State's the only one that I thought was like a physical football team that I saw this week that actually looked like it was ready to hit somebody. Like North Carolina felt soft to me at times at that Virginia Tech game. Miami, again, it was Alabama, so you can't put too much stock into it, but they looked soft to me for most of that game. And I just feel like NC State's the only team I feel like if Clemson were to punch it in the face, I feel like NC State's the only one that would punch back.
I mean, it's NC State. They look on time. They look on schedule. They are doing what you would hope to see out of an experienced team. And I say that on time, on schedule, because that game's on September 25th. I think the Clemson team that shows up in Charlotte again for the ACC championship will be a much better team when Will Shipley, when Kobe Pace, when this offensive line has had an entire season to be able to be a little bit more cohesive and try and gel. When all of the turnover, I mean, DJ is going to be a better quarterback in December than he is in this moment against this Georgia team. So even acknowledging the North Carolina and the Miami struggles and, looking at the Coastal, I still think that it's almost like if you're a Clemson fan and if you are coming out of this nervous, then I look at NC State and that trip to Carter Finley Stadium, I'm a little bit concerned, but I also know that if we can pass that test, then you've got all of October and then you've got all of November to be able to, get things back in line. I mean, I know that UConn on November 13th is going to give you sweats. I understand that the Huskies are going to have vengeance on their minds, after losing the Holy Cross. I ran the Chipolytics last Sunday, guys. I had Clemson as a 54-point favorite against UConn on a neutral field. And after UConn lost the Holy Cross, I haven't run the new numbers after today's results, but I wonder if we're going to get to Savannah State territory with the Huskies by the time that game comes in November.
I don't know. After what I saw today, I don't think I could trust Clemson as a 50-point favorite against anybody right now.
Even UConn. Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned Wisconsin-Penn State, Tom, because you were live blogging that game. I was live blogging Clemson and Georgia for the site. You had the noon kickoff with the Wisconsin-Penn State. It was a game that, man, Wisconsin, for so much of this game, they just had. They were driving. They were driving. They got to call all the turns. They got to pick all the road stops. Like when you were saying, like, hey guys, like we're going to be hitting exit number 4. Wisconsin got to say, we're going to Jersey Mike's. You know what? I understand what everybody else in the car wants to do because they were in total control of this game. Their defense was great. Penn State couldn't get really anything going. I did make a comment in the group chat, and I will stand by it, that I was looking for this new era and this modern offense with Graham Mertz, especially after everything we saw from his debut against Illinois in that weird 2020 season opener for the Badgers. Then he gets COVID, and then the whole season gets sideways for Wisconsin. But in this one, it just kind of looked like he was doing Wisconsin stuff. You could have told me that was Jack Cohn, who's going to be starting for Notre Dame against Florida State, that it was Jack Cohn under center, but it was actually Graham Mertz. But doing Wisconsin stuff, listen, that's still like going for it on 4th down because we got bigger boys and we're going to go get this. Like we're just going to be shutting you down. They were playing a game that they had won, and then Jahan Dotson happened, and then some turnovers happened, a couple pick sixes, a couple of good plays from behind the line of scrimmage. Tom, what was your sort of strongest read from this? Again, let's pitch it in the same sort of lens as the Clemson-Georgia. Are you coming out of this with stronger feelings about Wisconsin or Penn State?
First of all, you're getting confused with Iowa and Indiana. There were no pick sixes in this game. That would have made it exciting, and this game was not exciting in the slightest. Coaches say it all the time. It's so cliched. It's like, what comes, just don't turn the ball over and finish drives. Wisconsin turned the ball over 3 times, and it was 1 for 4 in the red zone, managing only 7 points on 4 red zone trips. It fumbled once. It got a field goal blocked. It was a horrible day for Wisconsin finishing drives, and a lot of that credit goes to Penn State's front 7. Arthur Ebiketie, a transfer from Temple, was a monster. I feel like every school should be checking Temple for pass rush transfers in the future if you need a quick infusion, because Quincy Roche last year at Miami and now Ebiketie with this year with Penn State's off to a great start. But to go along what you were saying with the Wisconsin offense not looking different, I don't think it's by choice. I think my biggest takeaway from what I could see in this game today was it's not that dissimilar to what we were just talking about with Georgia and Clemson. Like, Wisconsin has Jake Ferguson at tight end, who's a good player for them at the tight end position, who can help them up the seams, but he's not a guy who is stretching teams vertically. Like, he's not beating linebackers and safeties. He's not that kind of Kyle Pitts matchup nightmare where you can have him running vertical down the field and beating guys. And Wisconsin just doesn't have those guys at the wide receiver spot. So Penn State was athletic enough with its linebackers and safeties to kind of take Ferguson out of the picture. And Wisconsin didn't have its own version of Jahan Dotson to break free in the secondary for big plays for Graham Mertz to find them. And I think that really hindered what the Badgers were doing. And then on the flip side, Penn State was very inefficient offensively, but like you said, they hit Jahan Dotson on a couple deep shots. Sean Clifford looks better throwing vertically than he does on the intermediate to short stuff, even though you're still, not as efficient as you'd like on those deep passes. But it was what was working best for that Penn State offense today. So I think Wisconsin's going to probably look back on this game and feel like it's one that it should have won, but I don't think Penn State feels like it, stole anything either. I feel like Penn State just thinks defensively we hung in there and gave ourselves a chance at the end, made the few plays when we needed them, and Wisconsin just didn't make the plays.
Wisconsin was just missing a Quintez Cephas type, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the last explosive guy they've had on the outside. Like their skill guys on the outside are just not very impressive. You can play them in single coverage and actually be pretty confident, right? Like they don't scare me. They don't scare Tom or Chip or anybody in the comment section here. Like they're just not.
Hey, listen,
scary.
Danny Davis is all right. Danny Davis,
he's supposed to be that guy, but he just
23 yards is the longest catch.
I know.
Like 23 yards. What was the second longest catch? 16. Like, they don't take the top off. You would think with how much play action they run, they would be able to get over the top of somebody and bust something deep, and they don't. And then they're like, we're tough. We're Wisconsin. We're going to run the ball. And, I mean, their top two backs had 44 for 177. Like, I'll give that to you all day. That's not efficient.
Yeah, I thought that, for a Penn State team that we think their running backs are awesome, I mean, and granted, it's Wisconsin, so we do the same Clemson-Georgia thing where we have to adjust our scale based on the fact that you're going up against a defense that we expect to be one of the best in the country. But like, I kind of thought Penn State's offensive line kind of got worked at the point of attack, and the fact that they had to lean on some of these explosive plays. Like we said it in the stakes game, to go back into it. I feel like I'm coming out of this being like, wow, Penn State went to Madison and got a win. This is a team that we should believe is set for a potential bounce back season. Is that a overreaction?
I think slightly. I mean, it depends what your version of bounce back is. Like, if you're talking about 11-1, no. If you're talking about being maybe the second best team in the conference, or at least being, a good Big Ten team, then yes. I think that while this isn't a win that really proves anything, I think it is, at least for this Penn State team, a confidence boost, because, you started terribly last year. You finished this last season on the 5-game win streak, and now you're starting this year with a road win against Wisconsin. And while it was ugly, it's still a road win against the top 20 team. You're going to feel good about it. So I think that if Penn State, this could be a good step forward to having a much better 2021. It's just, I still have some serious doubts about the ceiling of this team unless Sean Clifford makes some improvements, and that offensive line had a nightmare day today. Unless we see improvement there, it could be a difficult season still.
I did not watch 1 second of Auburn-Akron. Will you give me any reason to step off my position that Penn State is a much better team than Auburn and will probably win that game in Happy Valley?
I'm not assuming that. I think I would still pick Penn State right now, but I didn't see anything of Auburn's game today, really, so I couldn't tell you. But I know Bo Nix balled out. 20 and 22, 275, 3 touchdowns.
I think Akron's the worst team in the FBS.
Maybe.
I know we've seen UConn lose, but I really do, because I don't know if you, Tom, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Tion Dollard, they're the only reason why you think Akron might win a single game this year. He's not on the roster, which makes me feel really good about that Bowling Green over. Because I'm gonna get that dub against Tom, because Tion Dollard is not on that. Anyway, there was a reason that Akron's team total in the first half was 0.5. I almost bet the under this morning. I was like, man, is Akron really going to score? Not to have a too early preview of the Penn State game. Auburn still has a whole lot of defensive speed in the back seven. but I don't think that their defensive line is all that good. They've lost some important pieces off that defensive line. So I'll be interested to see how much they can bust up Penn State's offensive line like Wisconsin was able to do today.
All right, let's go. Right now, again, as we're speaking, if you're in the comments on youtube.com/cover3, we're not going to play spoiler. I know a lot of our listeners are getting this on Sunday morning, but UCLA currently looking like it might be cruising. We will, once that game goes final, we will address it. Let's go open floor. If you want to talk Oklahoma surviving a challenge from Tulane, if you would like to discuss the many wins for the FCS, if there's something else that's on your mind. I mean, Iowa did look like maybe this, you talk about being the second best team in the Big Ten. Iowa looked like it might've been the second best team in the Big Ten. Sark wins by 20 in that game against Louisiana. Bud's prayers that this line would drop. Man, you didn't even need the line to drop. Even at the Big Ol' Open, that was going to be a Texas win the entire way. A lot of notes from that open floor. Bud, where would you like to go? What sort of stood out to you?
I thought the UCLA LSU game was pretty fascinating. If we can just go there, I guess, or should we wait?
It's over.
Let's go to. All right, fine. If you've been listening to the show, you're on LSU fans. You gave us all that crap for saying that LSU's run defense was bad, which it was last year, and I thought it was more of a problem than the pass defense. How about you give us 5 stars on iTunes now, because y'all just gave up 200 plus rushing yards on like 26 carries. So yeah, Chip Kelly found ways to outgap y'all and basically bust long runs, which was interesting. I thought LSU's defense, for the most part, did a good job of making Max Johnson get rid of the ball before he was ready. Kayshawn is nasty for LSU, but right now UCLA is just a more physical, tough football team than LSU is. And obviously LSU had the displacement issue this week, which I think can't be understated. I mean, that's a huge deal. And they were on a bus for like 10 hours, and a lot of those folks' homes are in the path of the storm. But UCLA looks good. I am extremely pleased to be holding a 10-1 ticket on UCLA for the South at this point. Like, I think UCLA looks like the best team not only in the South, but also in the Pac-12.
I mean, I think so far UCLA has definitely been the most impressive team in the Pac-12 based on what you saw, because Oregon kind of futzed around with Fresno today before finally kind of putting it away. And USC was never really in danger against San Jose State, but you never really felt like USC there was anything special about it. You know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, okay, they're beating them, and it's really, I don't know, maybe they're saving something, but it's just, there was nothing that really popped about watching the Trojans today as something that caught my eye as a reason to think, hey, this might be a special year. But again, it's week 1. I don't want to make too many overreactions. But speaking of overreactions, Caleb Williams is better than Spencer Rattler. I'm just saying it again and again.
I'm so out on that entire recruiting class of quarterbacks. Like, can I share an Elite 11 story?
Yes.
All right.
Well,
we had the Justin Fields and Trevor year, right? And like, that was a really good year. Those dudes were no doubt studs. Like, you guys are about as good as the college counselors at this event, kind of. And next year, Sam Field, Elite 11. I'm like, man, this feels like a really good regional compared to last year, like not like a national event. And it was, Spencer and Howell, and those dudes are good college quarterbacks. They are. It was like not all number 1 QBs in a given year are created equal. You know what I mean? Mm. And I don't know. I'm not in love with that quarterback class still.
Yeah, I feel like that was, I'll probably write about that a little on Monday and the Monday after, because I do think that was one of my bigger takeaways from the weekend, going all the way back to Thursday night with CJ Stroud and seeing him, struggle a little bit and not look great, seeing DJU struggle a little bit tonight, not look great, seeing Rattler struggle. I mean, Bryce Young balled out and looked fantastic, but I think we were kind of spoiled, like with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Like you said, those two are very special players who were ready right from the jump to just kind of step in and be terrific college quarterbacks. And I think that it makes you start to think that every single highly rated quarterback is going to be that same player. But man, these guys, they're still young. they still need reps. They still need game action to really figure things out and get comfortable. And I think that's been showing. And I think that's something we need to reconsider, especially like early in the year when we just kind of, I think like me in particular, I've kind of fallen into a habit where it's like, I think, no, this kid will be fine. They're always fine.
Like when you struggle, you just assume that everything's going to be okay later in the season. And you have to entertain the idea that it might not. Kind of like when Tate Martell is on his 9th school and he, along with the rest of the QB1 QBs, are out here struggling just a little bit. When the news out of UNLV was that he didn't make the depth chart, sad to see.
He missed the NIL era big time. Like, imagine Tate Martell if he was like 5 years younger. He would be killing it in NIL coming out of high school.
That was my Spencer Rattler joke, was just thinking, it's like, man, that guy, he probably could end up making more in NIL than Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams could end up starting by the end of the season.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is better. Everybody thought I was kidding.
So how about this? I thought that Oklahoma's defense doesn't deserve as much of the blame for this game as maybe the offense, which not only had the 3 interceptions for Spencer Rattler, but also just didn't do a very good job of extending drives all throughout that second half. We're going to it's easy because our brains are programmed to say Oklahoma's defense stinks, and so we should blame them. Oh, Alex Grinch, I thought the defense was going to be good. I don't think the offense did them any favors throughout the second half of that game. And I think that a little bit of that is Rattler, but a little bit of that might be coaching, which influenced by Rattler, offensive line, ground game, the whole thing.
Yeah, the Snap broadcast box score is not coming up for this game, so I'd like to check, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Like, did Tulane have a bunch of long scoring drives, or were they mostly kind of shorter drives? Because here I found it. They had 1 touch drive of 75 yards, and the rest were all pretty. One of 80, but the rest were all like 55 or shorter.
Defense did okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to assign that blame as such. All right, Tom, where would you like to go?
I mean, the elephant in the room, but like S teams had a very good Saturday, including East Tennessee State.
Man, you had to go there, huh?
Well, I mean, we have to bring it up, but it's just it was a rough start. It was a rough start for Vandy. We saw Washington go down to Montana. We saw, what's the other one I can't think of right now off the top of my head?
UC Davis beating
Illinois.
Tulsa. A team that played for the American Athletic
UTSA is not FCS.
FCS.
But yeah, no, that is definitely still on my mind. I mean, Iowa State nearly lost to Northern Iowa. That game was close throughout the entire thing. It was a theme throughout the entire weekend where, it's like normally in the beginning of the season, you see like some teams mess around with FCS teams and there are a few close calls, and then the fourth quarter rolls around and they just finally put things away. That wasn't really happening today. When we saw like the FCS teams played really well. I don't know. Maybe there's something to it being played in the spring that they're more game shape. I don't know.
No. Okay. All right. So I've got it for you. All right. UC Davis over Tulsa. Yeah. Eastern Washington over the Fighting Tate Martells, UNLV. South Dakota State over Colorado State. The Fighting Steve Adazios. Always fade.
In a blowout fashion.
Always fade Colorado State. Holy Cross over UConn, which was not that much of an upset. Remember, Holy Cross was only a 4-point dog in that game. Eastern Tennessee State over Vanderbilt, and Montana over Washington for the full FCS over FBS. And I will say that among those, other than Washington and Tulsa, I'm not stunned. Like, if you came to me and told, well,
Tulsa had the suspensions for the whole first half. Remember, stemming from the brawl. So they had
game.
13 guys suspended.
Year 7 should not be dealing with like you should still be able to win your FCS game, even if UC Davis is a good FCS team. I understand.
Still, I think the bigger takeaway for me there though is the Washington loss. just because my biggest fear
Fire John Donovan.
my biggest fear with Washington under Jimmy Lake is that they're going to try to win games 10-7. Like, Jimmy's got that defensive coordinator mentality where it's like, I can win with my defense. My defense is awesome. And your defense is awesome. But yeah, you need to put points on the board. In 2021, you need to be able to score. You can't just be going out there with 2 tight ends the entire time and trying to run on first down all the time. You need to take shots. You need to implement some more stuff. And it's just, I mean, Montana's, if you look at FCS programs over the year, Montana's been a very good team, and Montana might be a very good team again this season. But still, if you're Washington and you're ranked in the top 20 and you're trying to compete for Pac-12 North and you consider yourself a Pac-12 contender, you consider yourself a playoff contender, you can't be losing to Montana.
They threw the ball 46 times for 226. What's the math? Like, what is?
It's not that? Great, is what that is.
Like, it's terrible. Holy cow! I don't know. Like, that's horrendous. I'm trying to figure out something to say here. Like, obviously, I didn't watch this game because it's an FCS game and there are a bunch of other games going on. But throwing 46 times for 226 against an FCS team with 3 picks, Dylan Morris, isn't great. And their run game, 27 rushes for 65 yards. Did they have like an entire offensive line out with COVID or something that didn't get announced? Because this is and Tom, they only had 4.0 per play.
They were terrible in offense. They didn't do anything. It was just, I mean, again, they were held to 7 points by freaking Montana. It's not like, they were Clemson or playing Georgia tonight or Georgia playing Clemson. They were playing Montana. And it's just, I mean, Oregon did not make me feel good about my playoff prediction for them today, but the rest of the Pac-12 North made me feel good about Oregon at least winning that division.
If I ever get fired from CBS, I'm going to talk to John Donovan about how in the hell he keeps getting jobs after doing a really bad job. Like, it's amazing. I don't like Jimmy Lake's going to lose his job if he keeps this up eventually because he has a terrible offensive coordinator.
Okay, so what's the full John Donovan track record? Sounds like you got it on top of mind. I do not have his Wikipedia pulled up.
Bad at Penn State, bad at Vanderbilt, didn't do anything really impressive all that much with the Jaguars. Just pro style, weren't any good last year.
Gonna beat you up and take care of the ball.
Which is exactly what Jimmy Lake, like that's the allegation, right? That Jimmy Lake is the defensive coordinator. It's the Jeremy Pruitt syndrome.
Yeah, that's
Penn State fired him, and the oh sorry, my internet's weird. The year after Penn State fired John Donovan, they won the Big Ten. Washington, there's still hope. Terrible, just terrible.
If you fire John Donovan, you too can win your conference.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Look at this one here from Corey, the John Donovan Walt Bell Dream Team.
Oh my gosh!
UMass, by the way, did not cover against Pitt. Pitt was able to, I believe, it was 44-7. Was that score right there?
No, I think it was 51-7, wasn't it?
51-7. So they did end up covering the 38. Which ticks down a little bit because Robbie Calland and everybody else jumped in on the Minutemen to be able to, move the line.
Oh, there's that late sharp action steaming the Minutemen again.
So I was.
Didn't they fire Whipple? Like, of course, and Mark Whipple is the Pitt OC.
Oh, that's right.
He's got kind of incentive to run it up.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take it back because we have not gotten a chance to really do a full recap. Virginia Tech money line. Hello, gentlemen. Cashed.
Love to see it.
Oh, sorry.
North Carolina as a top 10 team. Fade forever.
It certainly feels that way, doesn't it?
New principal. I mean, that was a team that, two things happened that I was incredibly wrong about. Number one, and I know, Bud, you were with me on this one, was we were expecting the defense to be with more experience and another full season of strength and conditioning, of player development, that they were going to show up and they were not going to look tiny and they were not going to get pushed around. They looked small and they got pushed around at the point of attack. That was disappointing. If you thought that North Carolina's defense was going to be much better, helping North Carolina actually be a team that was going to compete for an ACC championship. Not that you were going to win it, but you were at least going to be, without a doubt, on a tier above the rest of the Coastal Division and a tier above the rest of the conference. The second thing that happened, I think, was a little bit more concerning and more difficult to predict, which was players like Josh Downs had a good game, but the rest of those wide receivers, Emory Simmons, Coffrey Brown, like you looked and you thought, man, like I think they're going to be able to step in. Ty Chandler comes in. I think that he's going to be able to solidify that running back room. The offensive line got whooped all game by Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was getting a ton of pressure, especially from the interior. Sam Howell was running for his life. I didn't think Sam Howell had a good game either. I thought that Garrett Walston and some of the tight ends and pass catchers had some drops. There were some misreads. And I go back to, so defense was one thing. The second thing is that I always credited Sam Howell for the decision-making that he had within the context of this RPO-based offense. And do you know what makes the RPO-based offense run is being able to have good timing and separation from a wide receiver. And you know what happens when your wide receivers can't get separation and your offensive linemen are all shook because they're getting their asses whooped at the line of scrimmage? You have ineligible line downfield. You've got offsides pre-snap penalties, and you've got Sam Howell looking at his wide receivers after trying to make the right read, and they don't even have the separation. Like, all of a sudden, this North Carolina offense, man, it broke my heart. You know what it looked like? Looks a little putt-putt. It looked like an old, like, Gus Malzahn Auburn offense, where it was just everything kept stuttering and we were just trying and one play would hit and then you back up and there was never any rhythm. There was never any flow. And I do credit Virginia Tech for coming out and bringing a physicality and an intensity that North Carolina clearly did not match. And I think that when I look ahead at North Carolina's schedule, I think there are many, many wins, but the downgrade for this North Carolina team was as significant than I have for any top 20 team after everything we've seen from week one.
If Justin Fuente could just recruit, he could be so good. Like, he's a terrible recruiter. They're not improving the talent level there. But, like, they develop their talent really well. Like, the guys who don't transfer out of the program, which sometimes seems like only like 3 or 4 dudes left just because all the exodus they've had, like they do a really good job scheming. They do a nice job, like, developing talent. Clearly their strength program is pretty good. It's just like they were ready for them. They had a good plan. I felt like North Carolina defensively was out-gapped for about the first 40 minutes of that game. Didn't it seem like they were always just a man short, always a gap short?
Yeah.
As far as their run fits. And Braxton Burmeister, I have to give him some credit. I've ragged on him on this podcast. I haven't been very impressed with him. That dude is probably like absolute hell at the Y in basketball. He's like so quick. He's not that fast, but he's just dancing around there in the pocket. Nobody can actually get a straight-on shot on him. Flips the ball out there. Arm's not anything special, doesn't look like, but he floats the deep ball nicely and just drops it in the bucket. They're going to be kind of feisty if they stay healthy. I didn't realize that Vatek's defense was going to be that good. Some of those defensive linemen they have been developed nicely.
Yeah, I think another takeaway too here is, like, I agree with what you were saying, Chip, about that offensive lineman getting pushed around, but I at least think the defensive side of the ball kind of adjusted in the second half. Yeah,
agree. I think they allowed like 6 for 6 on third downs at the beginning of the game, and they only allowed 1 third down conversion the rest of the game after that.
Yeah, because the Hokies came out like, just on fire, and then it kind of went out, and I felt like Virginia Tech had a whole lot of chances to put North Carolina away and just never really did. And I felt like North Carolina had a lot of chances to really just take the game back and never did. And then the clock just ran out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No other major observations?
I mean, the ACC Coastal, we saw, let's see, what is Pitt the best
Duke
team in the division right now? Duke lost to Charlotte. Georgia Tech lost to Northern Illinois. North Carolina lost, obviously. Miami got killed. Wake looked good, but they were playing Old Dominion. So it's like, I still think there's a very good chance that North Carolina can prove to be the best team in the Coastal, but this loss might cost them the division.
Yeah. I mean, Virginia Tech fans are going into the weekend and coming out of it feeling like they can compete for an ACC championship, which means that Justin Fuente's hot seat is significantly cool.
For now.
Chris asks, did y'all already talk LSU? I think Coach O might actually be bad. We did discuss the game. I don't think we actually discussed the coaching. Is he actually bad?
I mean, it's hard to say after tonight that he's good, but it's just, I don't know. I mean,
I'm not providing anything. This game is strange for a lot of reasons.
I think he was outcoached tonight. And I also think that, honestly, based on what we've seen, and again, things are going to change so much between now and the end of this month and the end of this season. But based on what I've seen so far, I think UCLA might just be the better team. Like, I don't know if there's anything terrible about the coaching as much as he had a worse team and he lost to the better team. And you could argue for sure that LSU should be a much better team than UCLA, considering that it is LSU and the way that they have recruited. So if you want to look at it from that angle, yeah, but I'm not going to go reaching too far on this one.
Coming up on the other side, taking a look at the number one team in the country, digging in on Alabama, as well as some of the other most significant results of week one. Next. So the Crimson Tide for me, I came in with an underplay that cashed. That does not mean that I am feeling just as confident about some of the reasons that I faded them. The first one, I do feel confident about. Alabama is one of the best defenses in the country. Check. Feel great about that. Number two, I was like, I don't know, Bill O'Brien, things might be a little bit rocky. New quarterback in Bryce Young, things might be a little bit rocky. I do not think, as producer Coca notes on youtube.com/cover3, I do not think I have as many doubts about this Alabama offense. How about Jamison Williams? Like, the number 7 Ohio State wide receiver had 124 receiving yards in this game. It wasn't even necessarily like it was a brilliant game plan, but it goes back to just our ongoing theme and conversation about overwhelming opponents at the wide receiver position, being able to really spread the field. And if you do have elite talent, like eventually, like back to the Ohio State Minnesota game, eventually there's going to be like a wide open 4-star, 5-star on a crossing route. And guess what? If you throw them the ball and you're able to deliver it on time, then they're going to be able to go and take that and turn it into an explosive play. I thought Bryce Young looked fantastic. In terms of a debut as a starting quarterback, we're talking, he's right up there with Mac Jones and Joe Namath with his yards and his touchdowns. I think 4 touchdowns may be a record for an Alabama quarterback in his starting debut. So I'm just going back into my cave of creeping inevitability of the Sabanization era, something that we have all experienced as professionals that have been working throughout the Saban era. This is another Alabama team that's probably going to win the SEC West. And hey, look, Georgia did a great job, but Georgia cannot play keep up with this Alabama offense, even with all the turnover that they've had.
Miami played a paycheck game and Alabama treated it like a paycheck opponent. I mean, this was just, again, it's you have to feel good, obviously, if you're an Alabama fan, but just on a weekend like we're the first week of the season, you look at the national title contenders and a lot of them looked jittery. Mm-hmm. Not Alabama. Mm-hmm. Alabama just looked ready to kill everybody all over again. Bryce Young just steps right in, plays fantastic. The new receivers played fantastic. The running game was good. Defensively, it's like I said before, the game when we were previewing it, I said, I don't see how Derek King coming off an ACL is going to be able to run. And I think Alabama's got a perfectly suitable defense to make sure he has nothing to run. And Derek King, 10 yards rushing on 9 carries. They kept him in the pocket, forced Miami to try to beat him through the, in the passing game. And Miami can't do that. So it's when you're Alabama and you're better than everybody else and you just take away your opponent's strength, you get a 44-13 blowout in which, honestly, it felt like it was a much bigger win than 31 points.
Look, Miami's receivers don't scare anybody. They don't win one-on-one matchups typically. That's an offense for the Hurricanes that is based on tempo, and it's hard to run tempo if you're just completely getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage on all the inside runs that you're trying to do. We've seen this before with them when they go up against a really elite team. This looked very similar to how last year's Clemson game went, to be honest, right? Clemson steps up there. They disrespect Miami's receivers. They stuff the inside run. Miami can't run tempo. That offense doesn't really have any drop back. Not that Derek King's a good drop back passer anyway, because he's not. Like, he's going to be going pro in something other than sports. But, like, they don't have a drop back game, really. So they can't – when they get to 3rd and 8, unless he scrambles around and does something, they're kind of screwed. And they were not able to run their tempo at all against Alabama. Now, Miami defensively, I do have some questions if they have the same level of impact guy on the defensive line that they have had in recent years. I don't know. I didn't see a lot of that, but yet they're also playing Alabama, so I don't want to overreact this. And I do want to give Bama credit, I think, for the absolute freak shows they are producing right now. Everybody made a big deal when they lost Scott Cochran to Georgia. But they got Dr. Matt Ray, and they got the new strength staff. It's a little more, medicine-based, I guess. Their guys just look so much bigger and faster than everybody else. They may have found something with the sports science that everybody else may be playing like keep up in this sport for a year or two.
You always have to say doctor. That's the rule. If we're going to talk about Matt Ray, we've got to call him Dr. Matt Ray. And I need graphics, and I need slideshows, and I need like the Galaxy Brain logo all the way. I say that with love in my heart, Dr. Matt Ray. I'm just letting you know, Dr. Matt Ray, that I think it's interesting that the greatest college football coach of all time has made a very significant pivot in the way that he has decided that he wants to treat the development of the human body at the highest level of athleticism. It is a very significant storyline, Bud is right to mention it. But it is hilarious that I have to call you Dr. Matt Ray. Hey, listen, soft tissue injuries are down 30% or whatever.
Yes,
whatever the line is that they've got. It is true.
Yeah, they're up 100% to Miami, though. They beat the hell out of them.
So I thought that you were right about the defensive line, but I totally agree with that. I felt like Miami having Bubba Bolden and like some good athleticism in the back end probably kept this from going over. As I realized.
Thank God. I was going to be so pissed if I lost that under, man.
Yeah, I was like realizing that the game had gotten out of hand and understood that Alabama was going to be able to pick its score. And it was the athleticism of Miami's secondary that actually kept that thing in check. Iowa State 16, Northern Iowa 10. We spent an entire offseason fighting with Iowa State fans. I have no plans to come out here and gloat because those Iowa State fans take such copious notes that they would understand very quickly that as I sit here at 12:38 a.m. on the East Coast, I haven't watched it, okay? I have not gone back to watch that game. So I present this game to you asking whether you got any eyes on Iowa State, Northern Iowa. My only note that I have in my pad is a text or a Slack message from Tom Fernelli. I forgot which one, that pointed out that all Northern Iowa is here for is to ruin the seasons of either Iowa or Iowa State for the one game that they play at some point in the season. Are we panicked at all by what the Cyclones might have done? And, like Oregon against Fresno State, maybe, probably not like Ohio State against Minnesota. Iowa State might have gone spring game on this one, right?
Yeah, I didn't really start paying attention to this game until the third quarter when it was still, 13-10 and Iowa State was really struggling to pull away. And it's like, all right, well, I better turn this on just in case. And even from what I saw, I mean, I'm not worried about Iowa State, to be honest. I don't think that this really changes my expectations for them. I think that, it might have been a vanilla game plan with Iowa looming next week and the Cyclones were in a situation where they did not want to put a whole lot on tape ahead of one of their very biggest games of the year, and they thought they would be able to get by Northern Iowa without it. And Northern Iowa defensively did a good job of keeping them, close and not allowing them a chance to pull away. So they got more than they bargained for, but in the end, they pulled off the win. And I think it's just, next week, it's all about Iowa, who looked amazing today against Indiana.
I'm not going to say a damn thing about Iowa State until they play somebody for real. I'm not going to follow that trap.
Yeah, I think next week's going to tell us a whole hell of a lot more about Iowa State than today did.
All right, what about Sark's debut? 38-18 against Louisiana. This was, I think Texas is like 10-0 against Sunbelt teams going into it, so I guess that would make them still remaining undefeated against Sunbelt teams. And while there were some frustrations and some moments where it felt like Texas couldn't get things going, I never really saw Louisiana put together any kind of sustained success that made it look like they were going to threaten the Longhorns to win. So I guess if you are buying into the idea that Louisiana is still one of the best teams in all of Group of Five, then this is great for Texas. But if you think that this is probably what the score would have been, even if Louisiana did not have that little 23 next to its name, you'd like to see Texas improve on some things. Which side of that fence do y'all fall on right now?
Relief. I think that Louisiana is a very good Group of Five team. I think it could win the Sun Belt, and maybe it's not the 23rd best team in the country, but I think it's a solid team. But my biggest takeaway from this game was it was just a nice change of pace, and I tweeted something to this effect, just a nice change of pace to see Texas in a game where you feel like Louisiana, as good as it might be, is a team that Texas should be able to handle without too much trouble. And it was nice to see Texas actually do that against a team that you feel like it should just beat, and it went out there and it did beat them. It didn't blow them out. It wasn't the kind of performance that makes you think, oh, wow, Texas might challenge Oklahoma in the Big 12. It might be a playoff contender. None of that. It's just a very nice way to start the season with a new coach. They didn't screw things up. They looked smart. They played smart. And, I just felt like there was a very good flow and a rhythm and a purpose to what they were doing. And I think that bodes well going forward. But again, I don't think that this win means that they're going like 10-11-1 or 10-2 or anything.
Bud, what you got?
I think it's fair. Yeah, I thought Texas had just superior athletes ultimately, and they were never really scared by Louisiana's passing game. I think that's really kind of what holds Louisiana back some. But I thought Texas looked good. Like, I don't think Texas is going to win the Big 12, but they came out and handled a team that a lot of people really believed in.
What else from the notepad as we're coming up on about an hour here on the Instant Reaction Show? What else were some of the biggest standouts from the day?
I would say shout out to Kansas State for getting me started on my over 5.5 win total with a win over Stanford, and also getting Chip a cover on the locks. I mentioned earlier, I thought Iowa, and we touched on it, of the Big Ten teams that we saw this weekend, to me, Iowa was the most impressive, and they crushed Indiana, and I felt like they kind of really took their foot off the gas, because the way that game started, I mean, Danny was counting his blessings because there was no way that under should have hit, and he was sweating that whole thing because it was 31-3 at halftime. It was 31-6 after 3. You just kind of felt like the Iowa Hawkeyes were just getting anything they wanted, and it was a really good performance. And it's just based on what I saw from Wisconsin today, based on what I saw from the rest of the Big Ten West, I think Iowa could be your favorite right now to win that division.
They could be. That game is at Wisconsin, though, right?
Yes.
So
do you trust Wisconsin? Do you trust that to come down to a head-to-head?
I don't think Indiana's any good.
Mm.
Sorry, Andrew.
I mean, I think Iowa's pretty good. I didn't see anything from Indiana, and Indiana was extremely lucky last year. That was kind of my theme for the day. Teams that were very lucky last year, kind of coming back to earth today, with the exception of Rutgers, who somehow scores 60 points on like 3.8 yards of play. That's
shout out Rutgers.
File that away, by the way, for the next couple of weeks. Oh my gosh, ridiculous.
I think that all the Rutgers fans that I talk to on a regular basis have a pretty hold on, sorry, that was just a joke. They've got a pretty sober-minded view of this, which is that the offense was not good. Like Rutgers, like everyone looks at this and they see defense played great. You were +4 on the turnover, and special teams came up with some big plays. Noah Vidal is not going to be the savior of your offense right now. There is no Nebraska quarterback, whether it's Adrian Martinez or Noah Vidal or Luke McCaffrey. No matter where you are in college football, if you're a former Nebraska quarterback, you are not the answer right now. You are not going to be the savior for the offensive efforts. But a 61 is a 61 is a 61. So, hey, Greg Schiano got the boys to cover. So you love that. You do love to see it. So I wanted to point out a couple of results. Number one, Mississippi State avoiding a loss against Louisiana Tech is a major adjustment for me for both of these teams. I thought Louisiana Tech was going to be very, very bad. And I don't think that Mississippi State is like within 1 point of them. So clearly it is both Mississippi State playing down and Louisiana Tech playing up. How much of that is sustainable? How much of that can be continued, especially with Mississippi State hosting this NC State team that we saw play very well on Thursday night against USF. And number two, producer Coco does so much great, fantastic work for us. But man, Maryland, West Virginia lived up to all of the, like, Tom, what were the words we were using? It was like, I don't know, it's going to be zany. It's going to be like weird. It's going to be dumb. It's going to be back and forth. Maryland, West Virginia delivered on everything that I wanted it to be. It was the like, are you going to go over or under your win total? Are you going to be bowling or not bowling? Well, guess what? The lot was cast, and Mike Loxley, Talia Tagovailoa, Tayon Fleet Davis, Dante Demas, like that, they end up being on the right side of that one. I'm trying to think, what was that third result that I had on here? Oh, congrats to Shane Beamer. You got it done. Got that dub. Congrats to Dino Babers, 20-point win.
I'm so mad at myself for not betting that. There was a part of me
1.5 or something like that.
There was just a part of me that was like, on principle alone, how am I not going to bet an ACC team on the road against a MAC team as an underdog? But I was too scared because of everything that happened to Syracuse last year. I didn't pull the trigger. I'm an idiot. I'm mad at myself. I should have bet Syracuse.
Dana Holgerson got blanked 31-0 in the second half.
Yikes.
Spencer
Sanders. Spencer Sanders did not play. He was in COVID protocol. Oh yeah. By the way, Lane Kiffin is not going to coach on Monday night. Breakthrough positive COVID case.
I have a text from the dentist
about how to adjust with the Lane.
The comment section wanted to know if, and he said, I think it helps the under that Lane Kiffin is out. And I agree, actually. I think that when coordinators step up in these situations, we typically see them play a little tighter, probably won't be quite as efficient with their fourth down decision-making. And I think it will help the under. I played the under 76.5 today.
The dirt. I've seen some comments, not only just now from Garrett, but also throughout the show earlier.
Dirt bikes.
The dirt bike offense, Michigan rolling over Western Michigan. My note from this game was just that everyone went bananas about JJ McCarthy. I did not see whether or not Cade McNamara played poorly or not, but when the lingering highlight is this, that other guy, I was just saying like, hey, let's check in on this. Again, we're recording like fresh off the live blog, so I have not gotten to like really dig into this one yet. So I don't know if y'all have any insight.
The highlight is JJ McCarthy unleashing a magnificent throw that he should never throw, and his coaches are probably going to yell at him about for making it. But it paid off, and it ended up in a touchdown. But no, It was just, I think it's not a win that really means anything, beating Western Michigan 47-14, but I think it's a good game just for Michigan fans, like mental state of being. Because it's like, I feel like if you're Michigan, you're coming into the year and you might have optimism, you might have high hopes, you might be convincing yourself that it's going to be good, but there's still that cloud that just hangs over. So to see Michigan come out and play a team it should be, kind of like we were just talking about with Texas, and just dominate that game from start to finish and handle that team the way you expect Michigan to. I mean, they rushed for 334 yards. They averaged nearly 8 yards per carry. The offense, the passing attack was really efficient. McNamara and McCarthy were 13 of 17 for 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was just a very good day to be a Michigan fan and just give them some confidence going forward when they've got much more tougher games coming.
2 really key injuries to keep track of here. Ronnie Bell, which is huge because he was a major threat on the outside for them. Also, Thibodeau for Oregon in a walking boot after the game. They have Ohio State next week. I want to spend like 2-3 minutes on the Big Ten. Northwestern. First of all, I'm sorry about Hunter Johnson. He actually looked better than I thought he was going to look. The rest of Northwestern sucked to high heaven. So I really if you go back to the Locks pod, when we did the Big Ten, we said I really like Michigan State because they get Northwestern in week 1, and Northwestern lost more than any Power 5 team. I'm not going to rule out Northwestern turning this around, but I am damn sure happy that my Michigan State over, they got to play them week 1 because they blitzed their ass.
Yeah, I was the biggest shock of that game to me was it was like you mentioned, I thought Hunter Johnson for the most part played pretty well. It's just my concern is that what Hunter Johnson seems best at is vertical passing because he threw some nice passes. It's just You don't
love Northwestern's receivers, Tom?
Yeah, I don't think Northwestern has anybody that can get to them when they throw them. So that's a problem. But then also defensively is like that was the worst I think I've seen a Northwestern defense look, not just from results of the numbers against them, but just like the way that they looked on the field, like guys out of their gaps and all that just kind of stuff that you don't typically see from Northwestern. That was just a really sloppy performance from them overall. And I think Michigan State, man, they might be, like you see the way Indiana played today, Michigan State might be moving back into that number 4 spot in the Big Ten East power rankings this year.
Kenneth Walker III, Demon Deacons legend, out here with like 230 yards and 4 touchdowns against a defense that needed like 9 Pat Fitzgeralds out there and Mike Hankwitz back as defensive coordinator after retiring. Like we kind of hinted at it from time to time. We were saying, hey, like as we do with every single team, whenever there's a changeover in coordinator for good or for bad, something to take into consideration. But, even at the end of last season, we felt like his retirement was kind of snuck up on us. And the joke was made. We never said Mike Hankwitz's name until he was just about to retire to give him all the appreciation and the credit for how good Northwestern defenses have been, for how those units had played above their talent level and had competed against teams like, winning the division against a Wisconsin or an Iowa and going up against an Ohio State and putting a scare in them in Indianapolis. And it lingered for me as we were watching Kenneth Walker shred this Northwestern defense, like you mentioned, with some alignment issues all along the way. And I said, wonder if that's a little bit of a significant adjustment. We give a lot of credit to Pat Fitzgerald, and he gets a lot of adjustments in our power ratings. I think Pat Fitzgerald has some work to do to live up to that top 10 head coaching ranking right now.
Yeah, if this Northwestern team gets to 6-6 or 7-5, I think he'll have maintained his top 10 ranking.
Agreed. Yes. No, 100%. If this Northwestern team is bowling in the holidays, then yeah, all of you Northwestern fans who are pumping him up as one of the best coaches in all of college football, you will have another great piece of your argument. All right. I got a lot more football to watch.
Minnesota played well. Ohio State, dude, like Ohio State played what? It's B game? C plus game?
I would say
C minus game?
No, I'd go C plus.
C plus.
Okay. And they had 10.8 yards per play.
Yeah.
Well, it was all on the chunk plays. I mean, you literally sort them
That's
out.
what Bama did last year.
Yeah, no, that's exactly that was the game plan. Like I wrote that afterwards. They just basically put CJ Stroud in the Mac Jones role. Throw short passes to Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and then watch them run for 60 yards.
I gave that win to Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Ryan Day. I loved what Ryan Day said afterwards, where he said, we're not going to stop. Like, we're not going to go conservative. We're going to keep taking big swings. I think big swings is his actual quote. He was like, we're going to keep throwing haymakers. And that's what Ohio State's going to do. Told you, hey. I told y'all, they get off the bus, they score 40 points. I told everybody they get off the bus and they score 40 points. And that's just what's going to happen every single game.
Did you go bet the team total? Because I on the locks pod, I said, you could also take the over 37.5 Ohio State team total. Ooh, I like that.
I didn't.
Did you take it?
No.
They covered for you anyway.
Right. Yeah. Hey, normal people.
Hey.
Just
hey, man. The ROI is for recreation.
Right. It's for recreation. How many darts do I have in my hand? I'm going to throw these darts and we'll see where they land.
I think Chip had a day, though.
You know who else is having a day? We were dogging him, so I'm going to give him credit. Shout out New Mexico State for first handing Bud his very first loss of the season. But they are currently beating San Diego State 10-7 in the third quarter. The same team that lost to UTEP by 27 last week, lost to Tarleton State in the spring, beating up on the Aztecs right now.
That is,
I said they had the intent to throw the ball fast and be better.
Mm-hmm.
That's like when I had the intent to actually put the dish in the dishwasher, but I just lay it next to the sink. Like that analysis by me was so crap. Like their offense is hot garbage. Look. Wow.
It's not great.
They're 5 of 16 for 51 yards through the air.
It's their first game. Come on. I mean, it could be worse. They could be losing to South Dakota State at home by 19.
Did all of the week 0 teams play well?
No, Illinois didn't play well.
UConn notwithstanding. Illinois, I guess, is the example.
Illinois. Oh, I mean, that was I was hoping we could get through the whole show without really talking about that. But yeah.
I mean, Marshall played awesome. They didn't play in week 0.
Army played awesome too.
Army played awesome.
Army just took Georgia State behind the woodshed.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I do need to do this. We have so many App State listeners. I have been mean to Chase Bryce.
He looked
good.
In context of Chase Bryce-ness and expectations, he looked phenomenal.
Yes, that is correct. With all the qualifications that Tom just offered. In context of Chase Bryce-ness, he did.
He looked like a group of 5 starting winning quarterback.
I mean, it's impressive. They I feel like they went through on the broadcast and just sort of rattled off like, oh yeah, and by the way, ever since this program has made the jump, I think that very first year they got off to a rocky start, but then they finished strong with like 5 wins in the last 6 games. To be able to finish with maybe what would have been bowl eligible. And then it's just been nothing but like 9-10 win seasons all the rest of the way. Consistency in Boone is admirable. And it is a big part of Coastal played well. Louisiana, obviously you're a little bit disappointed with the result against Texas, but I still think that's a really good squad. The Sun Belt's still a whole lot of fun. All right. I think I got everything out. Anything?
One last note.
All right, cool.
Shout out to Sam Pittman in Arkansas from coming back from 17-7 down against Rice to not only win, but to cover a 20-point spread, winning 38-17.
I mean, shout out, because if you had lost to Rice in that position, because Rice was trying to go in and do like like 3 yards in a cloud of dust to you, right?
Mhm.
Just try and keep away from Arkansas. Just
They're
try
what
to
Stanford used to be. Yeah.
overwhelm them at the line of scrimmage. Yeah.
Oh, and shout out to Kentucky's new air raid offense.
They got themselves a quarterback.
If you listen to us for 69 minutes, their defense looks leaky to me against a really bad Louisiana Monroe team. I think the race for the worst team in the country is going to be between Monroe and Akron. And they had guys open. I'm going to bet Missouri against them next week. So preview the Locks Pod there. That's like Louisiana Monroe so bad they couldn't take advantage of it, but that defense does not look very good. I actually watched that game because I'm a sicko and I was live betting the hell out of it. You guys, like I've got a group chat, Louisiana Monroe guys.
Yeah, everyone's chiming in with their observations, and then Bud's like, "All right, guys, I'm dialed on this Kentucky Louisiana Monroe game." Oh, thank you, Bud. I was really hoping somebody would jump on that grenade so we could make sure that we had eyes on Kentucky, Louisiana Monroe. Now, I told y'all before, I was a little bit spooked over all Louisiana teams. I was like, I don't know. I cannot handicap. We have been thrown a major curveball that I have no idea how to be able to dial in on. But if Kentucky's defense is looking leaky, that goes against the perception that we have for Kentucky's defense. And if their offense is all of a sudden scoring more, then that leaky defense is going to be on the field more than they were when they were just having a more ground heavy, control the ball approach, going up against the alpha nerd who maybe kept it packed in, Connor Bazelak.
Yeah, see, that's going to be an interesting thing to keep track of this week going forward for next week. Is I'm wondering how many of these teams just kept things very basic, and once I take a closer look at some of these results, it might kind of stand out that there were some very, very simple game plans for games that teams just thought they would win.
But it's one of those things I love about college football, especially when all of a sudden the packed in game plan doesn't work because it's 18 to 22 year old and because it's dumbass college football. And then all of a sudden you're Iowa State and you're like, oh no. Oh no. We don't want to put that on tape. We don't even have it in the game plan for this week. What are we going to do? Northern Iowa is we thought we could halfback dive this all the way to a win. Nope. Damn. Yeah. I don't know. I love it's one of my favorite things about early season football, without a doubt. Oh, UCF Boise State, before we get out of here.
Welcome to the Gus Malzahn experience. You got the whole thing in the first game of the season. I mean, that was all of it right there. Just insanity. And then sometimes you're going to end up winning and sometimes you're going to end up losing.
Yep.
Sorry about the weather forecast.
Yeah, shout out to Chip for calling the multiple lightning delays in the 5-hour game.
I sensed it. Just one of those things. I was like, I knew I was on duty too, and it was just going to line up that I wasn't going to be able to sign off of work till 2 a.m. And I was still going to, be up with the 1-year-old at 6 a.m. getting him ready for school. And so it's like, I see the little lightning clouds, at least the percentage chance. And you were right, Bud. You said oh yeah, Central Florida, you always have this much of a chance. I was like, oh no, not tonight. Not on game night. Electricity around the bounce house. Crosswind season starts probably in October, right?
Yeah, late September, early October.
Yeah, when we start to get those nice.
The planes get breezy.
Yeah, the planes get really breezy. We'll keep that one on your radar for sure. You can follow him on Twitter at BudElliott3. You can follow him at Tom Fernelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. We'll be back with you live again on Monday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern time, youtube.com/cover3. If you would like to watch live, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You will get it as soon as the show is done and published. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.